The income tax debate is back at the State House. A group of Democratic lawmakers and progressive activists just announced their new 3-3 plan with a 3% income tax with significant deductions in order to place a heavier burden on those who earn more. And then what's being called a true $3 per thousand of assessed value statewide property tax, again structured with the intent of trying to protect those with fewer resources. Here this morning to discuss are two of the architects of this plan, Andrew Volinsky, former executive counselor, and Clifton Velo, former state senator from the Upper Valley. Gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having us.
So we'll get to the debate over this first, but Councilor Volinsky, how do you convince people that this is a good idea?
Well, I think people need to look at the status quo to start with. We have people who are struggling to stay in their homes. We have school districts at the same time that don't have enough funds to keep the doors open. And so the question really for me is, who is it that's defending the status quo? And if you're not defending the status quo, what's your solution? This is a real, well-tested, well-thought-out solution, the 3-3 tax savings plan, and people should give it a try. We have a website. It's nhtaxsavingscalculator.com. People can put in their own data. We don't save it, and see how it affects them.
And Mr. Velo, how do you, I mean, for the average Granite Stater who's going to say, they're going to look at this plan and say, gosh, you want to raise my taxes, what do you say to them?
We want to cut your taxes. We want to cut your property taxes especially. And the way to do that is to have really the top 20% pay their fair share. Right now we have a system where we pay our property taxes from our income unless you have inherited wealth or you don't have enough income, then you have to dip into your savings, like many elderly do when on fixed income, or lose your house. So what this does is saying, let's provide exemption both on the homestead exemption, and on income that allows everyone to earn a basic standard of living. The New Hampshire Supreme Court has opined that that would be constitutional reasonable. And then have these flat taxes. And what that does is it really shifts the burden generally from the bottom 80% to the top 20%, because today, low-income residents in New Hampshire have a state and local tax burden that is 2 to 3 times that of the top 20%. And even the middle class is paying about double as a share of income in local and state taxes as the top 5%. Over half of all income is in the top 20%, and they pay the least to support public education.
How do you guarantee that municipalities will actually reduce the tax burden and that they won't use this revenue to increase spending?
Well, the plan is designed to replace local revenues with state revenues. It's not a bill, but the bill drafters, hopefully next January when we have a new crop of legislators, can put in some guardrails. That's the intent. This is not designed to increase school spending. This is designed to make school spending and the way we raise that money much more fair.
You know, a lot of voters, Senator Velo, like the idea that New Hampshire doesn't have an income tax, doesn't have a sales tax. So this isn't just a policy fight. You're actually challenging a cultural identity.
Yes. Because, you know, affordability is a top concern, as well as rising local property taxes. And if any politician is serious about addressing those problems, as well as the cost of housing, this plan should be on the table to consider. It's really about shifting the tax burden, not imposing a new tax, because we all pay our taxes out of our income.
You know, we always hear, one of the old tropes at the State House, you can't yell fire at a crowded theater, but it seems like yelling income tax outside the State House almost has the same effect. What was your reaction, Councilor, to the reaction of what happened after you did your press conference? In particular, it seemed like there were a lot of your fellow Democrats who were running in the other direction.
Well, let me say, we decided to announce this plan in March because the deadline to sign up to run for state office is in June. About half the House is doing their job and open to considering new revenue sources, and half is not, including leadership. We need to make some changes on that front. But the response to the announcement of our tax plan was so quick that they missed pieces of it. So if you are a New Hampshire resident who works out of state, you already pay income taxes. You get a credit for that under the 3-3 tax savings plan. There are 100,000 outbound commuters. If you're
And they'll also reduce property taxes.
and they'll benefit from the reduced property taxes. If you live outside of New Hampshire and you commute in for work, there's 65,000 of those folks, and they'll start paying the 3% flat income tax, contributing to defraying the cost of public schools.
Our neighboring states are actually the biggest losers under this plan.
In this debate, Republicans seem to be as energized about this as progressives are. Does that give you any pause?
That Republicans are energized?
They see, they see
follow.
this as an issue to run on to defeat Democrats.
Look, I don't think I'm revealing any secrets, but no matter what Democrats do, they're going to be accused of raising taxes in this next election, just as they were in the last election. Joyce Craig, the gubernatorial candidate, took the pledge, yet Kelly Ayotte's campaign was all about Joyce Craig's a tax raiser. That's an untrue statement, but it was levied anyway. We need to deal with problems, not worry about slogans.
And both of you are concerned with the next generation.
Yes.
But I want to put this same question to both of you. Do you worry at all that you don't see a lot of young people joining this fight on your side?
Well, I think a survey by Play Work New Hampshire showed that young people are much more receptive to, specifically, they asked the question of broad-based tax. And a majority of them said yes. If it can improve the quality of life or better support education, we're open to that. So I think the key to this is building understanding of both the unfairness of our current system as well as the benefits and the details of how this would actually work.
Yeah. And your thoughts on that? That, you know, maybe that poll is accurate, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like you have a lot of people clamoring to jump on this bandwagon on the younger side of things.
Well, I remember when my kids were younger and how little time I had to do anything.
And,
So,
and they haven't heard political leaders offering this as a solution. I think if there were some clear voices about this, people would rally. That's what happened when I ran for the Senate in a district that had never elected a Democrat before. And the opposition was all about my support for an income tax. And I went to great lengths to explain it. And I had people come up to me on election day and shake my hand and said, "You're the first Democrat I've ever voted for. I never thought I'd support an income tax. But the way you explained it made so much sense. Somebody should be in Concord explaining that."
What makes you think that this time will be different in terms of this debate? Because it's been had time and again and lost time and again on your side.
yeah, I think the problem is that much worse. I think everyone across the political spectrum is complaining about the impact of inelastic property taxes that don't respect your income. The Republicans have an answer. Their answer is wipe out public schools. The Democrats need to develop their own rational, factual-based answer, and the 3-3 tax savings plan provides that answer.
And Senator Bilo, what do you think makes this time different?
Well, saying similarly, I think that the pressure of rising property taxes and how disparate the burden is across different communities is really starting to bother people, and the difficulty of affordable housing is just compounded by this problem, and the fact that property values appreciate, but incomes don't go up with that.
All right, Clifton Bilo, Andrew Volinsky, thanks so much for joining us on Close Up. We appreciate the time.
Thank you.